Okay, so we have our Power Query editor open because we're ready to clean our data set, our data. So first, let's select the entire data set, column profiling based on the entire data set. So let's inspect first the first column. So as a practice for me, I do it from left to right. Okay, so I check on the count, check if there's an error. So we have empty, how many distinct, how many unique, how many empty string, the min and max here. So let's check this. So there's null. Let's filter the null and let's just check. Okay, null, and it is null all throughout. So we can remove null all throughout. So and even here we have already an error, and the error is showing us invalid cell value, which is NA. So we don't really know what does these rows contain because it's showing an NA, so not available. The data is not available. And this is EU-27. This is European Union, and our dataset is SEA or Southeast Asia. So we might as well remove these because we don't really need data for EU-27. Okay. See? Alright, so we can remove that. So we are already hitting two birds at the same time, like the null values and then the error there. So this is from 1 to... This is... Okay. So let me unfilter this, remove the filtered rows that I did earlier, and let me sort this out. So I have sorted it ascending, so the null values will go up or go to the top part, top portion, and null values showing are until what? Until 281. 281. Okay. Yeah, because I'm going to remove even the EU-27 because I don't really need that for my Southeast Asia data because this one is not part of Southeast Asia. So there, let me 281. So remove rows, remove top rows. So I'm going to remove 281 rows. Okay. So there. So I'm just going to name for the applied steps. It's recommended to rename your applied steps. So you can go back to it later and remember what was changed on this particular step. So here I remove 281 rows with null values and EU-27. Okay. So I'm done with the first column. So I already have 11 distinct. So now let's check our country. So let's check for country. There's still null showing in the country. Okay, let's check that. So we have 13 distinct, 18 empty. So let's filter the null value. Okay, so we have THA. THA ISO code is Thailand. So we can fix this. Let me just delete the filtered rows and then click on the column header, and then let's go to transform, and we are going to replace the null values in the country column. So that's null, and then I'm going to, that's null, replace it with Thailand. Click OK. So rename this with, I'm putting the column and then null, what I replace, and what I replace it with. Okay. Alright, so for this one, let's track. Okay, so we have 12 distinct. So since our ISO code is our primary key, and for ISO code, per country, it has its own unique ISO code. So there should be 11 distinct value for the country as well. So let's check why do we have 12 and not 11. So let's try to remove duplicate. Right click and remove duplicates. Okay, let's check. So we have duplicate of MMR for ISO code, and this is Myanmar and Burma. So Burma was the old name of the country Myanmar. So we can just remove or replace Burma with Myanmar. So again, let's remove duplicates applied steps. Click on the country, replace values. Let's replace Burma with Myanmar. And click OK. So rename it with country Burma to Myanmar. Enter. Alright, so now we now have 11 distinct values for the country and 11 distinct values the same with the country. Okay, so for the year, we are going to remove duplicates. We don't really need to have duplicate year for the same country and ISO code. So it should be, we will have to set this as, we'll have to select the ISO code, the country, and the year. Values that will have the same ISO code, country, and year. So there should only be a unique combination of ISO code, country, and year. So for here, I'm going to right click and we will remove the duplicates. So again, it's not just year. We are selecting ISO code, country, and year. This would mean that I am checking for duplicates for the combination of ISO code, country, and year. So there should be no duplicates, no the same combination of ISO code, country, and year. Okay, and then right click. ISO code, country, and year, right click. So you can actually select ISO code, press your shift on the keyboard and select here. So same as how you select multiple cells in or multiple columns in Excel. And then right click, then remove duplicates. Okay, so here I've cleaned my year. Okay. Alright, so let's move on to our next column, which is a CO2. Let's check here. We don't have an error, but we have empty rows. Okay, alright, here. Okay, our standard deviation is too high, even the average, and the maximum is too high. So we'll need to check. Negative values for carbon emission is possible upon checking online, referencing it to World Data Bank. So that's fine for the negative value. But we are going to check on the outlier because that one is too large of a number. Okay, so let me filter that. And we have to reference it to our data dictionary. The data dictionary stated that the column CO2 or carbon emission is expressed in million tons, and it seems that this value is the actual value per ton of CO2. So we'll just convert it to million tons. So let's remove the filtered rows again. Go back there and we will replace this with 614.916 to make it in million tons unit and click OK. So rename. So I replace the value in CO2. I replaced this value to this value, 614.916. Okay. Well, if you go back to your applied steps, you can always double click to check the values you've entered for what you replaced and what you replace it for. So for example here, if I double click it, it will show you the dialog box for replace values. Okay, so let's check the column statistics or column profile. So I'm good with this one. Okay. Says we have empty rows. That's fine. Probably there were no extracted value for those years. Okay, let's move on to the next column. This one, it's fine. Okay, so we are inspecting it per column. Right. Okay. The reason why data cleaning takes so much time because you really need to check it one by one. So we have null values here. Let's check if these are valid null values. Okay. Okay, when I say valid null values, we're not going to remove those null values. As you can see here, we have null values for consumption, trade, CO2, trade CO2 share, but we are not going to remove this because there are values in the other columns which are important or relevant for our data analysis. So we will leave it as it is, or leave it as is. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. So I'm checking everything that we see on the column statistics. That's how we check it column per column. Okay. So even here, the null values here, null values, negative values, these are valid data, or we just leave it as is. So even here, because we have valid data for the other columns. Okay. Just run through it, just check it one by one, each column, checking distinct, unique. Okay. Alright, okay. Alright, so we have here an error. So as you can see, we have a red bar showing and a dash line. Red would mean there's an error. So we'll have to fix or remove the error for this particular. To keep rows, keep errors, and check. So there's an error with the data format because the value is 0. This is in text and the data type of our column is decimal number. So now that we've investigated we already know what the error is, we can remove the kept errors here. So we will replace the data type first before fixing the error. So we have change type. We'll put it or change it to text. Alright, so this is, let's rename it to flaring CO2 X. Okay, so after changing the type, let's fix the error. Right click. Then we will replace the error value to 0. Click OK. So we already replaced the error with the correct value. Flaring CO2. We replace it with 0 to 0. Okay. Now let's change it back to its original data type. So now we have fixed the error on this particular column. Okay, let's check the column profile for this. Alright, I think this one is already clean. Let's move on to gas, CO2. Okay, check our null values. Okay, there are null values under flaring and gas CO2, but there are values on the other columns for those rows, so that's okay. We leave it as is. So let's check on oil CO2. Okay. Cement. Okay, we have null values. Let's check the other columns showing. Let's just do that. Okay. Even here, let's check our null values. Okay, so it seems that we have null values all throughout for this. Let's see. This is Timor. Okay. So let's just sort column. Okay. See null values. CO2. Checking. This is Timor. We have null values all throughout. Because we need to check every column before we finally decide to delete those. We're avoiding to delete valid data, so we're just making sure that we are deleting just those null values. Alright, so I think we're here. Oh, we have valid values there. 40 more, let's check. Okay, so 43. Alright, so we're ready to remove the top 43 rows. Just remove rows, remove top rows, and we need to remove 43 rows. Click OK. And rename this, remove top rows, 43 null rows, and the country is Timor. Okay. Alright, so let's move on. Checking our column. I think we're done with, we were at flaring earlier. Now moving on to this one. There's still null values, of course, but these null values have like corresponding data for the other columns, so we're not going to remove those. Okay. There. Okay. All right. So see, we have values. We have values here, so we're not going to remove the null values on here. Okay, seems that we're good with the other columns. Alright. Okay, we have an error here with population. So let's check on the error. Keep errors. Okay, so we have 118 and then 1000, and this is a combination of a number and a text. And our data type is a whole number. So what we'll have to do first, let's remove or delete the kept errors. Let's change the data type to text. And now let me rename this. This is population. And it was changed to text. And let's correct the error here. So we will replace error with 118,000. Click OK. And there you go, it's fixed. The indication that the error has been fixed, it's the green bar below, just below the column header. Okay, so let's check. Alright, so we have negative values here for the population, and for population there is no such thing as negative population. And if we're going to check it online, and the values for these negative values are actually just positive values. Okay. Oh, okay, so since there's no negative population, we will correct it by making this positive. Okay, so we'll just replace that. So let's go to our transform and replace values, our negative sign, and leave it blank because we are just removing the negative sign from the values to make it positive, and click OK. Alright, so again, I've replaced the error here. I have to rename this with, this is the this was under population, right? And this was the 118,000 to 118,000. And then we replace the value here with population with replaced it. We replaced the negative to positive. So enter, and then we're going to change it back to its original data type, which is whole number for the population. This is renaming it to population change to whole number. Okay. Alright, so let's move on to the next one, checking that. Okay, we have GDP. Alright, and let's check our region. Okay, our data set is focused on Southeast Asia. We don't really need Central Asia here, but we'll check why do we have Central Asia. Let's check. This is country. Okay, so Cambodia, but Cambodia is in Southeast Asia, so it was just incorrectly set. So we'll just replace this with the correct value. So replace values. We are removing Central Asia, or replacing Central Asia with Southeast Asia. Be very careful in replacing the values especially for the region. For this one, it should be exactly the same with the other values showing. I mean, if it is Southeast Asia, then the format, if it's capitalized, then it should also be capitalized in your replace with. Otherwise, it will count as another distinct value. So instead of just getting one distinct value, you'll get two two distinct values. Because in the region, there should only be one distinct value for region because our focus is on Southeast Asia. Okay, so there you go, one distinct. All right. Okay, so now we are in the last column, which is the income group. Let's check. Or we still have null values in this column, so let's check why we have null values here. So this is Philippines. If we check Philippines in the World Data Bank, the income group is lower middle income. So let's remove that here. So we are going to correct it. So we have lower middle income here. So how many income group do we have? So 3. So we'll have to set it as lower middle income, and we'll have to enter it exactly the same as this one. So we have 3 distinct values for this particular column. So now let's just click on replace values under transform tab. So we'll replace null and put it lower middle income. Income. And click OK. We have 3 distinct values for income group. So rename this. So we've renamed this value in income group. Yep. Income group. And this is we change null to lower middle income. Alright, so we have not replaced this one. We should rename this as, this is with the region. Okay, region, we replace Central Asia to Southeast Asia. Okay. All right. Okay. So we have 11 distinct, 11, right? So we've also no more duplicates in here. Okay. So we're ready to apply this, probably save it. Right. Let me save this. Of course, let me save this. Apply. So this is clean. No, I'm just gonna data cleaning. Just name that there. So there. So that would mean the changes we made are already implemented on our Power BI, and we are now ready to create our visuals. Alright, so that's it for data cleaning.